Whenever you want to get better at any activity, the best way is to go to the source. And if you want to learn to shoot safer on a range, what better source than a range manager? We are very lucky today to have John from FRC, one of our partners in Concealed Coalition for our Live Fire, here with us today to answer a few simple questions. First question, John, I've got for you is, what do you consider an ideal range customer?
Honestly, the ideal range customer is somebody with a good attitude. Our ideal shooter that comes to the range is someone who has never shot before, but who has an open mind and is ready to learn. That's so important. One of the things we encounter a lot with older, more jaded shooters is that, I've been doing it this way for 30 years. Well, that's true, but you've been doing it wrong for 30 years. And they don't want to hear any kind of constructive criticism. That doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough that we really look forward to those shooters that come in ready to learn and get better.
If that's what you look for in a perfect shooting customer, what do you look for in a range safety officer?
Attention to detail. Absolutely, attention to detail. I'm blessed in the fact that I have an incredible RSO here at FRC who catches everything. The other thing is you've got to be diplomatic at the same time, right? So it's not like he's the range police officer. His job is to keep everybody safe, and he does an incredible job at that, but there's some degree of, you can't be overly abrasive or corrosive about it either. These people are your customers. So it's a safety issue as well as a customer service issue, and I think the RSO has to thread the needle on that and be very, very careful about making sure that everyone remains safe and the safety rules are followed, but at the same time, not unnecessarily ruffling any feathers. That's very important.
On a follow-up for that then, what do you think the shooter's attitude should be towards an RSO when the RSO has to correct them on safety behavior?
So I think the shooter's attitude, and this is interesting because most of the time their attitude matches up with what I would like to see, and that is, hey, this guy is here to help me go home with all my digits and all my fluids. He's here to take care of me, and if I'm doing something that could be injurious to myself or someone else, I'm happy to take the criticism. And that's what we see 9 times out of 10 with our shooters, right? And again, my RSOs are really good about, treading that fine line between enforcing the rules and keeping good customer relations. And I think the customers and the shooters are very happy about that. So
one of the concerns I have as a chief range safety officer is when we have an experienced shooter who is taking new shooters to your range who don't know what's going on. And this experienced shooter really isn't an instructor, an RSO, but they're taking on that role. What advice would you have to the experienced shooters bringing in that new shooter?
Remain humble. Realize that even though you do have some shooting experience, you're not necessarily the expert in the room. Give the range staff and the instructors on staff and the RSOs on staff the opportunity to share their knowledge with the shooters you've brought to the range. I think that's very, very important. We make a concerted effort. There's always the problem that you could offend an older shooter who's got newer shooters with him in front of that group, and so we try to pull them aside and have that discussion elsewhere rather than right on the line of fire.
On a follow-up question to that, when you have someone who's coming in for the first time, one of those new 17 million new gun owners who's nervous and this is their first trip, what do you want to give them as advice to saying, hey, look, this is a 2A family and this is a scary process. How can you help that new scary shooter their first time in?
FRC is a little unique as far as other ranges in that we're all instructors here. Everyone here is a certified firearms instructor. I don't employ any salespeople. And so what we will do is we'll typically go out on the line for 10 or 15 minutes with that shooter and get them acclimated to their chosen weapons platform. We'll actually shoot it a couple times for them so they can see how the weapon's going to act, what it's going to do, and then we'll teach them proper grip and sight alignment, sight picture, and we'll put one round in the gun, let them fire one round, see how that feels, I've actually had shooters, brand new shooters, throw the gun after the first experience of recoil.
Throw the gun, then hands up. I'm out of here. I'm an anti-gunner now.
Yeah, and well, I've had them throw the gun. I've had them grab me and hug me. I've had them break down crying because they were so relieved once they found out that, yes, I'm driving the gun's not driving me. So I've had some interesting experiences. But the main thing is attitude. The main thing is attitude. Come in with the willingness to learn and an open mind. And most range staffs and instructors are going to treat you with the utmost respect and make sure that you have all the tools you need to employ that weapon safely and ethically.
You know, one of the things is if you shoot enough guns long enough, sooner or later you're going to have either firearm or ammunition trouble. If a shooter is having a problem on the range, from a range perspective, what do you want to see them do to handle either ammo or firearms troubles?
So with ammunition malfunctions and ammunition malfunctions, a lot more nefarious, obviously, because there's some new shooters who simply can't identify a squib load. They may not know what that is, and they may fail to identify it. That's why RSOs have to be particularly attentive to the line if they see anything that may indicate something like that could cause a catastrophic failure. We brief them, especially the new shooters, brief them very thoroughly on what to do in a case of a malfunction on the line, whether it's mechanical or ammunition related. Basically, we just want them to keep their muzzle pointed downrange for at least 30 seconds. Finger off the trigger, remove source feed, lock slide to the rear, or open the cylinder, as the case may be, set the gun down on the table, and wait for one of us to come by. And typically what we will do is identify what probably caused the malfunction and then explain to them how to clear it if they don't know how to already. Of course, our more experienced shooters go right to their immediate actions and clear the malfunction on their own.
You know, one of the things we think about when we think about range trouble is going to be equipment, firearms, or ammunition trouble. In my experience of over 30 years of being on a range is a lot of times it's personality trouble. And it's two shooters kind of matching egos, let's just say. What are some advice you have for getting along with other shooters who are posing a problem?
Lots of big egos in this industry, right? Again, humility is a plus, right? You don't know it all, can't know it all. And I think that it's important to remember that anytime you step into someone else's house or range, be willing to listen to other people. I've learned more from my brand new shooters than I've ever learned from any of my instructors that I've had in the past, right? So, keep an open mind, dose yourself with an ounce of humility, and that goes a very long way.
We have roughly, depending on who does the tabulation, 17 million new shooters since this last little round of buying frenzy, let's say. Right. And what would you tell those new gun owners? What are some things they need to focus on? Because they have a piece of hardware, but I own a guitar. That doesn't mean I know how to play music.
Training. All right. There's, and you know this from being in the gun industry for so long, Austin, there's this magic talisman paradigm out there. It's a magic talisman thing that people labor under, that if I buy a firearm and I hang it on my side, it will ward away all evil and no ill will befall me. And nothing could be further from the truth, obviously. Just like you said, owning a guitar doesn't make you Willie Nelson. It's cliche, but it's so true. You have to know how to run the platform. You have to know what its idiosyncrasies are, what its characteristics are, how it can serve you, how it can malfunction you, how it can fail you, and then how to fix it. With concealed carry classes, just as an example, concealed carry class does not teach you how to access a firearm from concealment and get it into the fight in an efficient manner and get a first round hit on target. More training is necessary. And I tell people all the time, if the only class you ever take with firearms is concealed carry class, you might want to reevaluate carrying a firearm.
One of the things I like to explain to people about personal protective gear is not only do we need to have eye pro, ear pro, but we also need to have clothing protection. What are some clothing boo-boos you see walking through this door that make for safety hazards?
Tank tops, flip-flops. Hot brass tends to go places you don't want it to go. I encourage people to wear a ball cap as well. A lot of people don't realize that the brass will fall right between your glasses and your eye and give you a nice nasty burn right there. Ball caps, safety glasses, closed-toed shoes, don't wear tank tops. You know, they're common sense things, but if you're just starting out in firearms, they wouldn't occur to you at all. There's absolutely a dress code for shooting on the range.
John, I cannot thank you enough for your insight. I don't know if you really appreciate just how well this will help a new shooter in there. And with that in mind, let's go to our next topic, which is know before you go.